Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you on a Monday. Always glad to get to your phone calls and your emails. We call this the Radio Northwest Network, and we at least endeavor to serve the states of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho with honestly provocative talk. And of course, we're coming up on an election. And I know one of the choices you're going to get is to replace dimwit Democrats with Republicans. But you also get the opportunity, perhaps, to do what's called a primary. And that means to replace a Republican with a Republican who's a bit more conservative and maybe one that will actually represent the people's wishes more. And Jerrod Sessler is one of those. He's a veteran. He's an entrepreneur, former NASCAR driver, and he's running now to replace fellow Republican Dan Newhouse in Washington State's 4th Congressional District. Jerrod, welcome back to the program.
Thanks. Thanks, Lars. Thanks for having me. It's a great introduction. It is time for people in Central Washington to be able to have their conservative values represented in Congress, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do that. So thanks for having me on here today.
Well, Jerrod, since indictments are so popular these days among the Democrats, I thought, why don't you give us the indictment of Dan Newhouse? Tell us why you think he's not properly representing the people. I would probably agree with you on most of the things you're about to say.
Yeah, I mean, the summary is obviously he voted to impeach President Trump. He funds Planned Parenthood about $1.6 billion over the last 4 years. If you do the math, that's about $1.8 million per day. He supported the sham J6 commission, still does to this day. In fact, I was with him the other day, and he said he didn't vote for it. And that was a lie. You can look up in the Congress record, he did vote for it. He votes to take away our guns, halt deportation. He voted in favor of a vaccine tracking bill. And to be honest, Lars, he votes like he was elected from Seattle or Portland, not somebody that was elected from Central Washington, where we absolutely need a conservative voice in Congress.
Jerrod, before we go on to what you would propose to offer the voters different than that, do you have some sense of why Dan Newhouse is going that direction? Is it, I mean, I won't put any words in your mouth. Just tell me why you think a Republican would vote for or against all the things you just named.
So it's difficult for me to answer. I tend to be the type of person that I don't like to go personal on things, and so I won't do that, and I won't speculate. But I will say that, you know, Dan grew up in politics. His dad was in Olympia. He served in Olympia. Then he went to Washington, D.C. I just think that he's part of the establishment. You know, I think there's a lot of people on the establishment side that, you know, sort of like the 49 years that we put up with, you know, the blight of abortion on our country. I think that Dan Newhouse has just become sort of part of the system, and he just sort of follows along, go along to get along sort of a person. You notice that he did not stand up to the McCarthy vote in January. He wasn't part of the 20 to, you know, change some of the rules in Congress. You know, here's the deal. He's perfectly welcome to come home and be our neighbor, but he doesn't have the trust of the people in Central Washington to be our congressman, to be our representative anymore.
See, Jerrod, you've hit the point where, as a voter, what I care about is represent the best interests of the people in your district. And if you say, well, but if I make some votes, people aren't going to like it, or certain organizations won't like it and they won't give me money, or they'll put somebody else up against me. I wish we had members of Congress who said, you know, if I vote for the right thing and then the voters send me home, that's okay, because I've got a life back at home. I've got a job. I've got a house. I love being there instead of here. I'm here to serve. And if you send me home, that's okay. I'll be all right. But there's another crowd of people, and I think they're the majority on Capitol Hill, for whom their entire life is being a member of Congress. And they plan to stay for as many decades as they possibly can. And the last thing they want is to be sent home. And it changes the way they vote.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would say in Dan Newhouse's case, he would be much better off if he would just communicate. You know, he's not excited about anything, and he represents, you know, 750,000 people. There should be a new issue on his tongue every single day that he's excited about, that he's, you know, letting the people know that he cares. And even when he makes a vote, like if I get to Congress, I'm sure that not every vote, every single person is going to agree with, but I guarantee you I'm going to come out and I'm going to say, why did I vote this way? What did I do? And to your point, I'm not really hung up on Congress. I don't need the title. I've already been successful. I've grown businesses nationwide. I've raised a great family, homeschooled 3 kids, served in the military. I'm doing just fine. I would love to just stay here and work on my farm and do my stuff, but I feel like I can bring value to DC and value to the country right now and the problems that we're facing. I'm an engineer. I have a process mind. Our government is a process. It's a system. It's corrupted, and it's not being followed, and that's the reason why I think I'm the man for the job.
I mean, maybe, Jerrod, audiences might not take it this way, so don't necessarily take my advice on this, but I always admired George Washington, because he wanted anything but to be in Washington, D.C. He resisted the idea of being named president. He rejected the idea of being named a king. And he said he was prouder of being a farmer back in Virginia. And he was hugely successful at farming and processing fish and a bunch of other things that most Americans don't even know him for. You say, oh, the first president. You say, yeah, but what he really cared about was get me back to my farm so I can do what I really love. I'm only doing this other stuff because I feel an obligation to my country. I wish we had 535 people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what it comes down to is an understanding of our natural rights and realizing that those natural rights come from God. We happen to be in a country that's lucky enough to have them documented in a constitution. So that means we're protected. And I believe the more people that realize that, the more people that get educated, the faster apathy is going to get washed away and people are going to start standing up and realizing that, yeah, I want to be a farmer. I want to be a family man. I want to be a businessman. I want to be an engineer or a plumber or a police officer or whatever it is. But right now I need to stand up for my country. And maybe Tuesday nights I need to stand up for my country, or Saturday mornings I need to go knock some doors for my country and realize, I think when people start to realize the value of the blessing that we have of being Americans, and most of the rest of the world doesn't have this, they start to realize like, okay, well, maybe I should get involved. Maybe I should do something. And that's where I strongly recommend that people contact their county Republican Party and get involved. These are some great people that are leading, that have prepared the way. And if anybody wants to stand up and get involved, trust me, there's a seat for you.
Jerrod Sessler is a veteran entrepreneur, former NASCAR driver. He's running to replace Representative Dan Newhouse, also a Republican. So, Jerrod, what's the best way for people to help you out?
Website is, you can just go to jerrodsessler.com, or I've got kicked off of Twitter, so that's no good.
You got kicked off. That's a point of pride. I've been kicked off. I'm back on it, on X, whatever they call it now. But why'd you get kicked off?
They said that they basically gang recorded a post that I made. It was just a comment, and they said that it was threatening, so they banned me for life. It wasn't threatening. It was about a court case, and I simply repeated the facts of the court case. And the truth is, I was growing followers ever since Elon Musk took over, and I think the left just didn't like it. So.
Well, the left doesn't like a lot of things. That's Jerrod Sessler. Jerrod, thanks very much. We'll talk to you again. And we'll give equal opportunity to Dan Newhouse and any Democrat who wants to try for the office as well. I'll get to your phone calls and emails in a moment. And a brand new song may become the rallying cry for a lot of conservatives in America. We'll get to that next, too.